What if the movie gets spoiled while you're watching it? The first time, it was still interesting, but by the 10th time, you just want to turn off the TV. Harbor Freight's promotions are the same now. Every month, another deal gets leaked. No official announcement, not explicitly confirmed, just ambiguous enough to make you stop and think. And it's precisely the moment you overthink before buying a simple item that the strategy starts to work. Because leaks don't exist to help you save money. Leaks exist to control when you open your wallet, to turn you from an active buyer into someone who is always waiting for the next signal. Today's question isn't, how cheap is this deal? But rather, who is controlling your purchasing decisions? Stay until the end because in this video, we'll peel back layer by layer. If you shop at Harbor Freight long enough, you'll notice a strange phenomenon. Leaked deals appear as regularly as car oil changes. No need for a big press release. No need for flashing billboards. Just one flyer getting out. A few videos leaking onto reviewers' channels, a few community posts, and boom! The entire market is like it's been put on hold. So, how did these deals leak in the end? And why is it able to spread so quickly? Leaks usually don't come from official channels, but from where people are faster at hunting for news than for sales. Leaked deals videos, photos of flyers, daily deal lists, for example. In a few videos, information about the 5-day ITC appreciation deal from January 27th to 31st was widely shared. Accordingly, each day is a different bait. 30% off, 35% off, then some days reaching 40% off, and ending with the ultimate deal of 20% off almost everything. For the average person, this is just a promotion. But for deal hunters, it's like a treasure map. It doesn't need to be complete, just enough for them to believe the treasure is real. And then they flock to it. A leak is like someone peeking behind the stage curtain before the show starts. The audience hasn't seen the play yet, but they've caught a glimpse of a few props, enough to talk about all night. Key point, a lot of leaks revolve around ITC, the Inside Track Club, a type of membership card that unlocks exclusive deals. Therefore, the leak creates two layers of experience. Customers often see leaks and think, wait, why do I have to go hunting for information just to get a good price? Meanwhile, ITC members felt like they were part of the in-the-know group. They got into the VIP room. When a deal can save you money in a way that's immediately obvious. It's no longer an abstract number. For example, a diagnostic machine priced at $700 with a 20% discount is equivalent to $340, which is almost the cost of a high-quality tool set, or several months' worth of gasoline. A $3,000 toolbox reduced by 25% is equivalent to about $750, which is like finding a new iPhone in your shopping cart. Such numbers make people not only want to buy, but also afraid of buying on the wrong day. But here's the interesting part. A leak doesn't necessarily hurt the company. Conversely, it could push sales onto customers earlier, as if you had a countdown clock installed in your brain. Wait until Tuesday? Wait until Friday? Don't buy today. And once you've waited, you'll keep following. Keep coming back. Keep telling your friends. Meaning traffic and attention are constantly pumped like a Netflix series. But precisely because it was so suspiciously regular, many customers began to ask questions. Was this a real leak or a clever way to bait and control shopping behavior without saying anything at all? What about you? Have you ever been annoyed after buying something today only to see it appear in a cheaper deal leak a few days later? And do you think the leak was an accident or a very cleverly designed FOMO creating tactic? And if you think this just stops at feeling annoyed, hold on, because the next part is what really worries many people. Leaks create an environment where things that look like real deals can appear, and they're not always harmless. If, in the previous part, leaked deals still seemed like a strange phenomenon in the retail market, here the picture begins to touch on personal emotions, something that not only makes people uncomfortable, but also leaves them simmering with anger. It's not because of the discount, it's not because I'm trying to save money, but because of the feeling of being misplaced in a game that I thought was fair. Here, there's a familiar scenario that repeats constantly. You buy something today, tomorrow, or worse, a few days later. It appears in a leaked deal with a deeper discount. At that moment, it wasn't about losing a few dozen dollars. That was a blow to the buyer's self-esteem. The most common feeling isn't regret over money, but the thought that pops into your head. I'm a regular, but I'm being treated like a newcomer. It's like you're standing in line neatly, paying for your ticket, and then you find out the door next to you just opened a fast lane for people who know the password. When the price drops to $300 to $400, equivalent to the cost of a decent tool set, or even $800 to $1,000, the cost of a short vacation, the regret is no longer just a number. It transforms into a feeling of being playfully, gently, and legitimately pranked. But it's very real. Next is time pressure, which stretches emotions taut like a guitar string. When deals are divided by day, customers no longer buy based on need. They buy based on schedule. Monday for this dish, Tuesday for something else, Friday is the final boss. What are the consequences? You're delaying buying something you need, just because you're afraid of buying it on the wrong day. You go back to the store multiple times, like checking into a long-term event. You're scheduling your life, work hours, and shop visits around promotions. This is like living with an alarm clock that's constantly ringing, not to wake you up, but to remind you that if you don't act at the right time, you'll miss out. And FOMO, once triggered, will cause purchasing decisions to be driven by emotion rather than reason. Then comes the third, deeper and more sensitive layer of emotion, stratification. When the best deals are associated with ITC, the role of membership changes. It's no longer an option to save extra, but has become the price of admission. No one is saying outright that you have to buy ITC. But the leak does something more subtle. It keeps all the most attractive offers behind those doors. As a result, customers wonder, if I don't join the club, am I being treated like a second-class citizen? Clearly, no one is forcing you to buy ITC. They just make all the good deals happen behind that door. At this point, the anger no longer flares up into rage. It's settled into doubt. And doubt is what erodes trust the fastest. Have you ever bought something and then seen it appear in a cheaper leaked deal a few days later? Did you feel like you were wasting money at that moment? Or did you feel left out of the game? If you find this type of analysis helpful in seeing the market more clearly, subscribing to the channel is the easiest way to not miss the next parts. No fuss, just adding perspective. And if you think this frustration is just a personal feeling, just wait, because the next part will reveal a much bigger consequence when leaks become a habit. The line between a real deal and something that looks like a real deal begins to blur. If the first three parts only made viewers angry for buying at the wrong time, here the story takes a much more concerning turn. Because when leaked deals become a market habit, it not only muddles emotions, it opens the door to things that look like promotions, but are not at all harmless. Let's look back at how consumers have been trained in recent years. They gradually became familiar with concepts such as secret deal, not yet announced, only for a few days, only for a small, pre-selected group. These phrases, repeated over and over, create a new standard of belief. If information is vague and appealing enough, it seems credible, and that is the most fertile ground for forms of forgery to sprout. For the bad guys, the job becomes frighteningly simple. Copy the interface of a familiar retail site. Label as leaked deal or pre-release. Offer an unrealistic discount, enough to make your brain stop analyzing. Simply put, it's like a familiar neighborhood suddenly going dark. You're still on the same old road, but all the familiar signs are fading. And once your eyes get used to the darkness, it's very easy to turn into the wrong alley. The consequences are not just theoretical. It appears in very ordinary forms. Email congratulating you for qualifying for a gift. Website clearance sale with a tense countdown timer. The survey confirms that the offer requires personal information or a card. What do all these things have in common? They don't promise anything new. They only mimic what consumers are already used to seeing from previously leaked deals. When a 30 to 40% drop has become normal in your eyes, a larger number no longer raises suspicion. It just excites you. When you are trained to believe in leaked promotions, you are also trained to believe incorrectly. Trust doesn't disappear suddenly. It was eroded bit by bit until the line between a real deal and something that looked like a real deal became as blurred as morning mist. There's something confusing here, which is, why are careful people also easily tricked? Many people think that only careless people are at risk. In reality, experienced shoppers are actually the most vulnerable target because they know the market price, knowing what a real promotion looks like, believing they are not easily deceived, but it is that very confidence that causes them to skip the final check. When a page looks familiar and reasonable enough, the brain will take a shortcut. I've seen this kind of thing before. And just one wrong trust can lead to consequences that go beyond mere frustration, including time, personal data, and sometimes even real money. It's like you've been driving on the same road for years. One day, someone replaced the sign. You don't stop reading, you turn out of habit. Previously, promotions usually came from clear sources at clear times. Now, leaks are lowering standards. Ambiguity becomes the norm. Haste becomes a signal. And not confirmed is no longer a red flag, but rather a stimulant. Have you ever seen an offer that looked so real you almost believed it just because it had the appearance of a leaked deal? What makes you stop or not? If you find this type of analysis helps you see the other side of the market, subscribing to the channel is simply so we can continue the conversation. Not to sensationalize, just to add another layer of understanding. And after all those risks, the big question remains, how does all this ultimately affect your purchasing decisions? And how do you avoid getting caught up in someone else's game? After all the analysis of leaked deals, FOMO, and fake risks, the most important question still hangs in the air. How does this really affect you? Not at the level of market theory, but in very everyday decisions when you're standing in front of a shelf, holding the item you need to buy, and your brain starts to waver. The first, and also the most subtle effect, is that you no longer buy when you need to. You buy it when the time comes. Leaked deals plant an invisible clock in your head. Every time I prepare to pay, the question that pops up isn't whether I need it, but whether I can afford it, but rather whether it will be cheaper in a few days. When a decision is delayed like this, the initiative shifts. It's like when you want to eat when you're hungry, but you have to look at the kitchen's opening hours. The hunger doesn't go away, it's just forced to wait. And when it's prime time, you buy faster and more because you're afraid of missing the flight. Second, the real cost isn't just money, but mental energy. Many people think the biggest impact is losing money. Actually, before you lost money, you lost energy. Tracking leaks, remembering dates, comparing prices, considering buying or waiting. All of this combined is like running a background application in your head, constantly draining your battery. Let's put it into perspective. If a deal saves you $300, but you have to spend hours tracking it, going back to the store, and then buying a few extra items on the side, that savings is like trading a quiet evening for a coupon. Not everyone wants to pay that price, but leaks make you forget you're paying it. Third, membership went from being optional to a hidden fee. With ITC, the impact is even clearer. Initially, membership was presented as a cost-saving tool, but as the most attractive deals kept appearing as leaked, ITC-only offers, it gradually turned into an entry fee. You don't buy ITC because you need it. You buy it because you're afraid of being left out. This is a dangerous psychological moment, when an expense becomes so normalized that you no longer question whether it's worth it, again, just like paying for parking in a place you visit frequently. It initially seems absurd. Then you accept it, and eventually forget you're even paying. And then you find yourself buying more because the day has come. Leaked deals also create another effect: bulk buying. When you've waited for the right day, you tend to buy to make the wait worthwhile. So, from a necessity, the shopping cart swelled with a few more convenient items. This is just like going to a buffet. You're not hungrier than usual, but since you paid for entry, you try to eat more to make it worth it. Leaked deals work exactly the same way. If you've been waiting, you might as well buy a lot to make up for it. Ultimately, the biggest impact isn't on the wallet, but on trust. When leaks become the primary source of information, official announcements are questioned. You're starting to believe rumors more than the listed price list. And when trust is reversed like that, consumers are always in a defensive state, tired, cautious, and prone to overreact. Have you ever realized you didn't buy something just because you were afraid the deal wouldn't be available yet? And then, are you really saving money? Or are you just buying differently? If you find these analyses helpful in reflecting on your decision-making process, subscribing to the channel is simply so we can continue to dissect the stories behind the market. Not to preach, but to offer additional perspectives. So the final question is, how do you still shop smart? Take advantage of promotions without getting caught up in the hype of leaked deals. The next part will be practical principles that you can apply right away. At this point, the question is no longer whether Harbor Freight has a leak or not, but what do you do when the leak appears? Because in every promotional game, the winner is not the one who knows the news first, but the one who retains the final decision-making power. This section isn't about small, isolated tips. It's a toolkit for thinking that will help you navigate the maze of incentives. The first principle may seem obvious, but it's often overlooked when emotions run high. Only trust deals that appear on official channels, website, app, clear notifications. This is the only radio station you need to open. Everything else is just noise. Imagine you're driving in the fog. You don't need more directions from the sidelines, you need fixed signs. Promotions are the same. When the source of information is unclear, the risk increases faster than the price decreases. And you? When was the last time you bought something because you heard there was a deal coming up? And where did that source come from? Beside that, there's a practical rule. Stop when you see a drop exceeding 40%. It's not because deep discounts are impossible, but because the probability of needing to check skyrockets. 40% is like the red line on the tachometer. Once it crosses this threshold, the emotional engine starts to roar. To put it into perspective, if an item worth $500 is reduced by zero, that's a week's worth of groceries for many families. The number is large enough for the brain to skip the verification step. Stop for 30 seconds to check the source, conditions, and expiration date. That's how you truly save, not just on paper. Before adding to cart, ask yourself just one question and only one question. If there were no leaks, would I buy this item? This question is like turning on a flashlight in a dark room. If the answer is no, then the leak is controlling you, not the other way around. If so, you've passed the toughest test, real need. Also, remember this. Membership isn't bad. Blindness is. ITC is only worth considering if two conditions are met. You buy regularly, not in emotional bursts. The item you need is over $300, where the discount percentage is large enough to offset the fee. Treat ITC like a spreadsheet, not an emotional card. If the calculation isn't balanced, leave it on the table. Don't put it in your wallet. A simple but effective technique. Write a list beforehand. When the list is available, the deal only serves to optimize price, not to stimulate demand. It's like going to the supermarket after a full meal. You're less likely to be tempted. Finally, set your personal buying pace. Buy according to your budget, usage history, and goals. When your rhythm is steady, every golden day outside is just background music. You listen, but you don't dance. What do you think? Which of these rules do you find the most difficult to apply? Do you have any personal rules to help you avoid getting caught up in promotions? And with the secret tool in hand, it's time to tie up the picture. What final message should you remember every time a leaked deal emerges? After all the layers of analysis, perhaps the most important thing isn't about a specific deal, but how you view the promotion. Leaked deals aren't always bad, and they aren't always gifts either. Sometimes, it's just a trap lit more beautifully than usual, bright enough for you to step forward, but not clear enough for you to see the wires ahead. The key question is no longer how cheap this deal is, but rather, who is controlling your purchasing decisions? If you still have the right to answer that question, you're still in the driver's seat. Have you ever been annoyed about buying early before a leaked deal? In your opinion, are these leaks accidents or a very cleverly designed strategy? Leave a comment. I read and respond to every opinion. If you find this analysis series helps you see the market more clearly, Subscribing to the channel simply allows us to continue analyzing the stories behind money and consumer behavior in detail. No sensationalism, just reality. The content in the video is analytical, commentary, and educational, does not represent any brand, and is not intended to encourage or discourage specific purchasing behavior. All spending decisions are personal choices. Check information from official sources before acting. Thank you for watching until the end. See you in the next video, where we continue to ask the questions that advertisements often avoid.